Thanks.
Well, I'm honoured to be joined this afternoon by Sheriff Principal Anwar. Thank you, Sheriff Principal Anwar, for agreeing to come back onto Hey Legal. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And it's lovely to be back.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Today, we're going to look at the role of a Sheriff Principal, because you have recently moved sheriffdoms. And I wonder if we could start just by asking you to give an outline of the duties that a Sheriff Principal performs compared to those of a sheriff.
A Sheriff Principal has many duties and frankly wears many hats. So a Sheriff Principal is an appellate judge and a leader and a manager, for want of any better expression. All Sheriff's Principals sit in the Sheriff Appeal Court, and the Sheriff Appeal Court deals with appeals from summary criminal proceedings, both from the Sheriff Court and the Justice of the Peace Court. It also deals with civil appeals. These can be heard by a bench of 3 appeal sheriffs, and normally that involves a Sheriff Principal presiding, or a civil appeal can be heard by a single appeal sheriff, and normally that's the Sheriff Principal who presides over an appeal from his or her own jurisdiction. The Lord President also appoints the President and the Vice President of the Sheriff Appeal Court from among the Sheriff's Principal. So that's the appellate function, as it were. In terms of being a leader and a manager, the Sheriff's Principal have a statutory responsibility for the efficient administration of court business in terms of the Courts Reform Scotland Act 2014. And what that means in short is that Sheriff's Principal are required to have an understanding of what resources are available to them, how to make the best use of them. And that involves managing people, managing relationships, and managing processes. You also need to understand the nature of the business in each of your courts within the sheriffdom, and that in turn allows you to devise a court programme which will meet the demands of your local community and the needs of the local community that the court serves. That court programme will in turn be influenced by court accommodation, by levels of staffing, and by the Shrieval complement. Perhaps another aspect of the Sheriff Principal role is the need to work with a large range of what might be described as justice partner agencies. Those include, for example, the Crown, the Bar, the police, local authorities, GOAME, to name but a few. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, Sheriff's Principal have a responsibility for the sheriffs in their sheriffdom, and that includes dealing with things such as training and development, matters including pastoral and welfare concerns, leave requests, the allocation of work. So in short, as I say, Sheriff's Principal wear a number of different hats and they have a huge range of duties to perform.
Well, you took the words out of my mouth. It certainly sounds like a huge range of duties, so I'm sure you have a very busy diary. Can you tell me, you've recently moved sheriffdom and you're now in sheriffdom of Glasgow and Strathkelvin, so will your role or duties change because of that move?
The duties won't change as such. The appellate functions, the duties as a manager, those things will be very much the same. But undoubtedly, Glasgow Sheriff Court is a very large court and it deals with a very large volume of business. And I hope to enjoy the benefits of having everything under one roof. I was, until recently, the Sheriff Principal of South Strathclyde, Dumfries and Galloway, and that is a beautiful and diverse, geographically diverse sheriffdom, with courts from Stranraer and Dumfries to Airdrie and Hamilton. I was dealing with 6 court programmes, 6 courts, the full range of justice partner agencies across 6 courts, and that presents its own challenge. So I'm hoping that part of the job of being in Glasgow, it might be that bit easier and might involve a little less commuting.
Yeah, so the centralisation of it all being in the one location is going to assist. Yeah. And so do you have any particular focus now that you have that opportunity? You know, are there any changes that you would like to make in your new role?
On one view, the ink on my transfer direction from the Lord President's not quite dry yet. It's a bit early in the day, I think, to be talking of changes, but I am very keen to understand what works well in Glasgow and what might be better. And for me to understand that, I'm hoping to engage with the sheriffs, the staff, the justice partner agencies, before I can assess the need or otherwise for any changes.
Yeah, okay. And you mentioned earlier about the Sheriff Appeal Court, and you have recently been appointed as President of the Sheriff Appeal Court. Can you again explain, please, what that role entails?
In fact, I don't take up my appointment until August. So I'm hoping to learn a great deal from the current president of the Sheriff Appeal Court. That's Sheriff Principal Marisha Lewis. So I'm hoping to learn a lot from her. But generally speaking, the president and the vice president of the Sheriff Appeal Court are responsible for managing the business of the Sheriff Appeal Court. They work closely with the Lord President, and they are involved in decisions such as the appointment and the training of appeal sheriffs, dealing with proposed rule changes, revising practice notes for the Sheriff Appeal Court, and will get involved in devising the programme for the Sheriff Appeal Court and the allocation of appeal sheriffs to appeals.
Okay. So again, a very full remit. Clearly, you've outlined to our viewers that you have very significant duties to perform. Can I ask you, what was it that made you want to pursue a career in the law?
In short, my dad, my father, he, from a very young age, told me that he thought I would make a good lawyer. And so I found out a bit more about it. I found out about what a lawyer does. And the more I found out, the more interested I was in the role. I think I would probably have to admit that my early ideas of what a lawyer does was heavily influenced by programs like Ellie Law and Ally McBeal. And I was an avid fan of the bill. But I think I quickly realised that life doesn't really imitate those dramas. It didn't take me long to work that out. But I have loved being a lawyer, and I've thoroughly enjoyed being a sheriff. And being a member of the judiciary now is a huge privilege, and it's an enormous responsibility. And I hope that I can continue to work hard to discharge that responsibility to the best of my abilities.
Can I ask, what characteristics did your father see that made him think that law was the career for you?
Oh dear. I admit that he thought I was very good at arguing. I'm not sure it was the right kind of arguing, however. No, I used to enjoy debating with him about all kinds of topics. We'd watch the news together in the evenings and then chat through what we'd heard. And I think as an immigrant here from Pakistan, he had a real ambition that his children should educate themselves and that they should get the education that he wasn't able to have for himself. Like all parents, he wanted his children to excel in areas that he perhaps hadn't had an opportunity to explore. And he happened to pick the right one for me, I think.
That's brilliant. So having chosen a career, perhaps not having had it chosen for you, but being steered in a particular direction and having embraced that, what would you now say are, what are the best parts of being a lawyer, and what are the more challenging aspects of being a lawyer?
The best parts of being a lawyer, if you're a problem solver, then I think you'll enjoy being a lawyer. Being presented with a legal problem and then trying to identify a solution it's really interesting. And when you find that solution, it's really rewarding. Working on a case, identifying the best arguments, considering your opponent's arguments. In short, frankly, it's interpreting and applying the law that really appealed to me, and I think must appeal to most of us who are lawyers. And I think also the fact that every day is a school day. You never stop learning, you never stop developing. And that is perhaps one of the attractions of being a lawyer. And along the way, you meet some very interesting people. You hear some very interesting stories. In fact, perhaps in a way, in that respect, it is a bit like some of the legal dramas that I've referred to.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the more challenging side of it, what parts of it do you find a challenge?
What was challenging, and I'll readily admit to this, was managing that work-life balance. The days in private practice when I had a very young family were taxing, and I was working very long hours. I knew that this was a career that I really enjoyed. It was a career I wanted to excel in, and I made it work with the support of family, with the support of my husband, and two very understanding and patient children. I think I've made it work.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Well, I'm sure your father and your wider family are delighted at the career that you have that you have carved out for yourself and your progress in the law.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Lovely to see you again.
Thank you very much.